Welcome to the Embodied Wisdom Podcast.
Okay, so Carrie, what I want to know from you, you went from being a psychotherapist and you've stepped into the spiritual, which, like I was just saying, I've seen so many people doing recently. Um, so I'd like to hear from you your own story, your own words of like what led you boop from one to the other.
The one word answer is grief.
Grief.
Uh, Grief was my portal to the spiritual realm. And, it's like the things that are, when something's happening in our lives, we might feel tormented by it, or there's suffering or challenge
Mhm.
or struggle, and we don't see how this is going to serve or benefit or evolve or upgrade us in some way. So you're getting me, actually, Tuesday this week was the 17-year anniversary of one of the losses that created this ripple effect of impact. So you're getting me 17 years on the other side of this initiation that I went through. And my grandmother passed, and then 3 weeks later, my intern was murdered. And that was my opening. It
Mm,
collapsed me in such a way of like, this is some shit you see on 2020 or Dateline, not something that is in my life. And
yeah.
I had all these skills. I'm a practicing psychotherapist. I go to therapy. I facilitate healing. And I felt like nothing was touching it. It was horrific. The PTSD, uh, unable to sleep, anxiety, just fear. I was stuck in fight or flight. And after several months, I came upon a flyer in my therapist's office that said breathwork for grieving healers. And I said, well, if that's not a nudge from somewhere or something, that's who I am. I'm a grieving healer, and I want to be in a
Yeah.
container where that is honored. And it was in that session that my maternal grandmother came through and said to me, forgive everyone in advance. They're already sorry.
Ooh, love that. It's so crazy. Grief brings so many people on their healing journey. It is literally a portal. It's
Yes.
literally a portal. It's so powerful. It's so massive if we let it be the teaching tool that it is.
Yeah.
And that has been the common, not everyone uses the word grief, but that has been the common theme
Mhm.
of people, ascending on their journey of really coming into their truest nature,
Yeah.
because face to face with the mortality of your meat suit,
Mm.
right? Of like, okay, if I'm only this lump of clay looking back at me in the mirror, then what happens once I leave it?
Right.
And that sounds like what happened to you when you had those back-to-back losses, we'll call them.
Yes.
Nothing I believe is ever truly lost, but that's what it feels like from the human
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to know, how does your oracle deck
Mhm.
help you bring people onto their healing journey? How does that really lead them to a transformation where they get to step into an absolutely new identity?
Well, I didn't know it at the time, but it was that moment, that message that my grandmother delivered that was the opening for about 8 years after that. I received the messages from Shadow Oracle Deck and Healing System in a meditation, and it was another turning point. At that point, I was on having a health crisis, and no doctors could define or diagnose what was happening, why I was having tremendous pain and heart palpitations and fatigue. Nobody could find anything. And my spiritual
Huh.
teacher said, I told her, I feel like I'm dying. And she said, you are, but it's an ego death. It's a death and rebirth cycle. What are you not acknowledging? And I said, I'm not supposed to be a therapist anymore. And I thought I would be old and gray before I walked out of that therapy practice. I knew since I was a little girl that I was made to help, and this felt like such a resonant way for me to be of service. So
Mm,
it was shocking to hear that, and I wasn't really ready to face it. So my body was trying to get my attention, like, hey,
resisting. Yeah.
yeah, you need to hear this. So it was in part of that this tool came to help me first. It was like, I was looking at all of these oracle decks and going to these healers, and they were like, you're on track, everything's great. And I'm like, well, then why do I feel like crap? Like, that's not at, thank you. I mean, at the bigger picture, yes, in a spiritual sense, I imagine that's true. But what do I do right now while I'm suffering? And that's when these 34 energies came through, revealing themselves as my oracle deck. So this is not your mama's oracle. It's not the roses and butterflies and unicorn deck. This is showing you to those things that are hidden, the patterns that live inside of you that you might not really prefer to look at, but
Yeah.
you need to if you want real transformation, sustainable healing. You need to be willing to see what you haven't been looking at that is trying to reveal itself to you. And this illuminates it and then simultaneously clears it. It's also encoded with energetic frequencies, the images, there's healing mantras that go with it. And it's also not me telling anyone what to do. The guide booklet came through with a series of questions to help others find their inner healer and to answer these questions to see their pathway forward, because that's part of why I retired my license as a traditional therapist. I felt that a lot of the field is very much like we're doing something to other people.
Right.
We're facilitating versus like, no, we're both powerful, sovereign beings, and you happen to come to me so I can reflect you back to something that you're not seeing in yourself. And this tool, to me, is one of the pathways to be able to see those things.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Yeah, we use the term healers, but no one is truly healing another. We are guiding them to their own internal healer within them. So whenever I have to preface that all the time, because yes, they're drawn to you for a reason. You have a key to a door that they need to unlock. They're drawn to you for a reason. There's no way it can't be that way. However, you're really drawing them, like I tell with my clients, I'm going to hold your hand and take you everywhere, but you are going to be the one to walk through that door. I'm just going to open it up, say, yeah, go through this one.
That one.
Right? And another thing that you hit on with the shadows, and I could not agree more, and I think that's why we're seeing it everywhere now in the healing world, is really dealing with the shadows. And let's think about what those are. Those are just the dark places that you have not brought the light of your consciousness to yet. It's like when we're kids and we swear there's a monster under our bed or in our closet. Look, we swear. And I remember those feelings and that fear. But what if those monsters are just little pieces of yourself that you're just not ready to look at yet? And so I love that this shadow work is really coming up of being like, don't be scared of the shadows, investigate, get your flashlight out. Let's go check them out, because really there's nothing scary. There's nothing coming after or towards you to harm you. But what if it's all just wisdom that you need to seek out and find within yourself?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you went there, because to me, people are confused about what shadow work actually is. They think it's all
Yes.
the bad stuff hiding in there. And yes, sometimes there might be trauma that we
Uh-huh.
haven't looked at that's hiding, that needs to be illuminated. But what also is hiding in there are the treasures of your true self that you may have masked and hidden away for safekeeping because the world was scary, because the world didn't accept your expression or your brilliance or whatever it might be. And so we tuck those away, but they never really go away. They're just, safely kept. And if we never go in there to look at that, then we live an inauthentic life with only half of us, a quarter of our whole selves online.
Yeah.
And what a shame, right? We're here to be fully expressed, and it is our job and our responsibility to find any places where we are lacking in that full expression and give ourselves permission to bring those things back online. I think that's where the miracle of this work really has revealed itself for me, is that people are so confused about why their relationships aren't working or why they're struggling with health or
Yes.
with purpose. And it's like, because the divine is not going to allow you to feel good about living a half-assed life. And if that relationship was built from a pattern or a trauma or a wound, then it's trying to constantly redirect you back to what expression of relating would be more true for you. And a lot of times we're settling for things that, we're worthy of so much more, whether it's upgrading the current relationship or circumstance that we're in, which can absolutely happen, or whether it's letting relationships or circumstances go so that new, more aligned and true versions can come into reality.
Yes. And in order to do that, we have to do some investigation deep within ourselves. Because just like you said, we're going off these old systems, these old patterns that got passed down to us. And now we know more than ever that most of that just isn't us.
Yeah.
And so I love these examples that you gave people. And I think your story needs to be told where you experienced pain in your body, you experienced grief, all these alarms were going off. And a lot of people are going through this right now. I deal with people mostly around their love relationships, right? And you deal with women mostly around their business, those like pain points of their finances, right? Which is a huge thing for most healers. I say healers but that's a huge piece for a lot of us. And these things are coming up in our system to let us know, hey, this is what we get to work on now. And as long as we're in this lineage, in this meat suit, we're going to have to be working on ourselves. So I would love to see from you, aside from those two examples of like physical pain in the body, letting us know, hey, you're out of alignment in this area, seeking those answers within. But what other things have you seen really coming up for women right now? Because you mentioned love relationships, you mentioned the money piece, the business piece, but what are you seeing as alarms that these women are getting that are coming to you? What's coming up for them?
The word that I just heard is exhaustion, right?
Yeah.
Being so overwhelmed by holding so much for so many and not letting themselves be held. I just did a retreat called
Yes.
Held for a group of women, and an aspect of my body of work is aerial somatics, and literally being held in this silk fabric, like recreating the womb experience. And that's a lot of what we were moving through is we're holding so much, and we're good at that. As a feminine essence being, our womb space is meant for holding and for creating. And we're also meant to be held both in this human realm and in a spiritual sense. And if we don't permiss that and we're out of balance and harmony with our own holding, then there are consequences for that. That is not a free path. It's very expensive to not allow that for ourselves. So that can present in a lot of different ways. I mean, my body of work is really about receptivity. How do we receive what is meant for us to be, to do, and to have financially, service, relational, health? And I think that's what I'm talking to a lot of women about right now. Where is your capacity to receive been limited by stories that you're telling yourself, experiences that you've had that have had your sacral chakra shut down and say, I didn't like receiving that, so I'm not going to receive anything.
Yes. Oh,
And
receptivity is such a huge thing. And I think that where we're at in our expansion right now is not going to allow us to be imbalanced in any way. That's what I'm seeing in relationships specifically is if he's been the supporter, if she's been giving her power to him, saying, you run the show, you tell me what to do, I'll be here. Right. It's calling, the energy right now is calling for that balance and them taking back their power and owning and saying, no, I'm not giving it to you anymore. I'm going to hold my own freaking power for myself. And it's allowing for this exchange. So in the way that you're working with your ladies, it's the same thing with that receptivity piece, but it's around the finances and possibly more. It's in all the areas, which I think is so beautiful to look at. Because really how we do one thing is how we do everything as a human being. And I love that you're really digging into finding their specific imbalances. Yeah. And
thank
so
you.
what does that look like? Because I love the idea of these, the aerial somatics. Is that what you said? It sounds delicious. Like I want to do it immediately.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's tremendous. It's a body of work that supported me tremendously years ago. And my mentor and practitioner began training practitioners. And as soon as she did, I was in the second class that she had because, my work, I think I'm not a therapist anymore, but my work is incredibly therapeutic because how could it not
Mhm.
be given?
I think it just up leveled. I think you went from therapy. I think that just, it was one step on your journey. And then taking the next step made you just that much more powerful because
Mm,
now you're working with the full being, not
yeah.
just the human side, not just the human brain side, but now you're working with the body, with the emotions, with all the other aspects of the being. So
Mm,
I think that just made you like a powerhouse
thank
to that next level that you moved up to.
Thank you for seeing me and
Yeah.
reflecting that. It feels really true that I think what we dream for ourselves is one level, and then there's like often so much more. And when we answer those calls and move in those directions, I moved from Florida to California in 2017, and I had no idea why I was doing it. I had a multi six-figure practice, healing center, success, well known. I had written a few books, like things were going well. On paper, there was no reason to make that transition.
Hmm.
But my heart and soul and body were saying, you need to. And I didn't know why until I got here and life began to reveal other ways that it wanted me to serve and the medicine that I had that wanted to be shared. And I think that
Mm.
to answer your question around how I now work with women around that, it's taking I never facilitate anything that I haven't myself experienced. I do believe we can only take people as far as we've gone. And
Absolutely.
I really believe in the embodiment of practices and, forms of medicine and our gifts so that I think of myself as transmitting, the work, right? It's a transmitting a
Love that.
remembrance, right? Let my cells know this. And so in my presence, your cells can remember this. And of
Hmm.
course, we talk and we're moving at other levels as well. But ultimately, I think when you're working with someone who's done the work in that particular spot, and they embody it and emanate and radiate as that in the world, there's a permission that
Hmm.
happens in their presence.
Absolutely.
And that I think is what I've discovered. I have a lot of, my clients help me name my remembership space is called.
Remembership. I love
Isn't
that.
that great? I was like, it sounds, membership sounds so some way. I don't know, but we're remembering together. But one of my clients said, every time I'm with you, I feel so much more receptive afterwards to life, we're talking about my business, but I'm having better sex with my husband, or,
Hmm.
people are opening doors for me, or opportunities are coming in. And I'm like, oh, because before that, my work was called abundance activation. And I found that people weren't getting it because they thought it was just about money. And
Yes.
it's such a small, I didn't feel, I'm like, why does my work not feel fully received? And I'm like,
Mm.
because it's not just, it's abundance, but abundance is a side effect of being receptive.
Yeah. I
And
love
that's
that.
when I renamed
It's
and
so true. It's so true. People can get so fixated on the money piece. That's why it's like it's up to, and I love what you said about the cells, because you're
mm,
so right. When you have attuned your cells to a certain frequency and you're really inviting them to tune to your frequency, and it almost launches them higher. That's why I tell people, if you're not hiring someone to give you the results that you have not yet received, then you're on the really slow track.
yeah,
And if you won't give them that exchange of money, because it's far more than that, they're tapping into your system as far as this electromagnetic being that you are, right?
yeah.
That's all we are, is like this electric vibrating field. And all you have to do is give me some money and you get to tap into that. Like, why wouldn't you do that? And then another thing
Exactly.
I was thinking of that you spoke on, kind of that grief piece. We could use other words for that. But when you experience a level of pain
Mm,
that you have gone into the center of, because you got to feel it to heal it. You have gone into the center of, and you've dissolved the pain. All of a sudden, people who are coming to you that are riddled with pain, you're like, oh no, we're just going to go into it. We're just going to dissolve it. And you're giving them that permission of like, it's this fast and simple, not always easy in the beginning, especially, but you're giving them the path and you're letting them know it's not hard.
Yeah.
So that's on the cellular level, what's happening, which I think is so beautiful. So and that shift in the name to me is a shift of intention, which changes everything. So let's look at the other ways that reciprocity serves us, because you said a lot of people tend to think about it in the financial, but let's get into more of the details of what that could be. You said better sex, people opening doors, you get your parking spot, you get that job you wanted. What are the other ways?
Yeah, I think about, if you're trying to receive a bite of food and you're like clenching your jaw, how
Uh-huh.
much deliciousness are you going to be able to let in? So to me, this is limitless. What I'm talking about in receptivity is being open to life, letting life in, letting
Yeah.
life have its way with you, letting life do what it's doing, and like pausing the resistance to it. And this is tremendously vulnerable. Most of our nervous systems, and that's why I really shifted my work to a lot of nervous system work. We do breath
Yeah.
work in my community. We're doing energy transmissions. We're looking at our vagal nerve and health and what is happening there, because you can want to be receptive, and who doesn't want to receive? And I was seeing that with a lot of people. It's like they're wanting it, they're longing for something so badly, but they're not even living in a body that's capable of letting it in. And that can be incredibly frustrating. And I love what you said, where being with someone who has let something in, it's like, okay, this is possible. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that transmission of possibility is really important, because when you're so far away from having something that you want, whether that be an experience in love or health or purpose, it sucks. And how do we bridge that gap? So that's why I started doing a lot of my work in community, because we start to see each other
Yeah.
receiving at different levels and having different things. And it's like, if you want to write a book and you don't know any authors, that feels really far out there, and like, oh, that's for those people. But when you've got a sister in Circle who's just written a best-selling book, or just taken the stage, or just birthed a product or program that people are responding to, you're like, oh, my friend did that. My sister in Circle did that. Maybe I could do that. I'm getting the chills even saying it. I feel like we've gotten so far away, so independent and so separate from each other, that we have forgotten what it's like to be in a village, doing things together, using each other's experience as mirrors of possibility, and helping each other to go to where we're meant to be.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about, as you say that, I'm thinking about the contraction versus the expansion
Mhm.
energy, right? The heart really opening up. When we're in fight or flight, we're restricted, we're scared. We're like,
Yeah.
is that tiger coming out? So we're living in that scarcity, that contract, that
Mhm.
tightness. But when we drop into the heart and we open and we expand and we
Mhm.
let it in,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, so I was going to ask you, how do you really open them up to be, and you've already sort of answered this, but I want to go even deeper with it. How do you open them up to receive? You said breath work. You said really working on that vagus nerve. Can you give us a few more things that you really do with them to allow them to open up like that flower,
Yeah.
the life flower?
Two of my favorite words: slow down. Opening is
Ooh.
really hard when we're moving so quickly and we're trying to keep up with everyone else or the pace of life.
Mm,
The body doesn't open quickly. If you think of, receptivity as a feminine principle, right? If you think of the womb, the receiving, that's a feminine principle that both men and women can and should be working with, because we need all aspects. My mentors say being energetically agile, being able to move between the masculine and feminine as we need it in daily life. I need to be direct and clear and focused, which are masculine, energetics, but there are times when I need that. And then there are times when I can soften and open and, relax. So slowing down, and part of this is like letting the head understand, like when I teach them why it matters to train the nervous system, like that, I was like, okay, I'm not doing this wrong. I just need to do these practices and have these practices. So the breath pattern helps to train, like working out in the gym. It trains us to feel our capacity, and to, when we do a breath pattern that amplifies the body, it can create a little bit of anxiety. But if we can stay with it, we learn I can stay present through hard things, through intense things. I can grow to my next level of receptivity and trust that I'm not going to collapse inside of that. So we've got the breath work, we've got the slowing down. Those are the two that I feel like your audience might need to hear, because they're the ones that are like
Those
most
are those are
alive.
brilliant. Yeah. Sometimes I make practices of, because I think when we're creating new skills to reprogram our nervous system, it's all about adding them into our regularly scheduled
Yes.
program. So like when I'm in the car, I'll do some breath work, whether it's 5 counts in, 7 counts out, something very simple, and I'll just do 3 of them. But when we're catching ourselves over and over again throughout the day and just saying, hey, take time to get present and take some breaths on purpose. I also like to use breath of fire. It's
Mm-hmm.
just, it's an easy way for me to like come back into my body, come back into the present really quick. But integrating it with all these, do you have any other little helpful hints for people to really ground back into the body, connect to the breath that you teach?
Yeah, it's another thing that's coming through is tracking what you're receiving. That's another practice we do in
Ooh,
the
I like
portal,
that.
because it's so easy. We're focused on what we don't have. We're focused
Right.
on, like, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough love, I don't have enough health, I need this, I need that. And all the while we're over here like focusing on that, there are things that are coming in. Most of the people that I work with, while they might feel scarce at times, they have their basic needs met. I'm not working with people who are, they have the internet, they've got the phone, they've got a roof over their head. If they don't get that next client or have that next thing, yeah, money might be tight sometimes, but they might also have a partner that's helping. So I have people track what they're receiving, not only financially, but what opportunities have come in, what creative downloads have you gotten, who
Right.
has offered you something, who has helped you, where have you been offered grace, like what are you receiving? I have a document where people actually track and add up over time, so that you can see I am more receptive than I realized. And then you can also see what categories of receptivity come really easy for me, and I'm kind of nailing those, and which ones do I want to focus on and
Oh,
highlight.
that's so good, because where your attention goes, energy flows. And by just tracking, because like you said, they're not seeing everything that is abundance as abundance. It's just the green. It's like, no, every relationship, every experience, every like breath you take is really a gift. But if you're only looking for the things you don't have right here in this moment, you're making that way bigger than all the great stuff that's coming in.
Absolutely. And it's usually our ego. Our ego has a lot of preferences about how it wants to receive. And so I also, as a practice, invite people to notice, okay, how do you prefer to receive? Like a lot of clients, when they're setting intentions, they might say, I want, and you can do this in love or business, like I want 3 more clients, this month, and ideal clients, or I want a partner who has this, this, and this. That's great. But is that what the soul wants? Is that what God wants to give you? Like, is that what is meant for you? So we also create a bit of opening, like, I want this or something better or more
Or better.
aligned or
Yes.
truer. Because a lot of times what we're
Mhm.
aware of wanting, like I have clients who want more clients, and I'm like, why am I feeling that your client load is dwindling for a reason? Like, what else have you been? Oh, I kind of had this inkling of a book. And I'm like, right, where is your work trying to go? You're trying to get more
Mhm.
clients, and your work is saying, I want to expand in a different way. So we
Right.
also, I call it mature manifestation. It's not just manifesting from our egoic desires. I want this, I want that, I want this. Wants are great, and we do need to know what we desire, but the magic happens when our desires are lined up with what the divine would have for us. That's when things
Yeah.
start
And
getting
like
really
big
juicy.
picture, right? It's like
Right.
you're zoomed into this real small thing. Like I used to think, oh, I need to do this, this, and that before I could do this. And that was what I wanted, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, what if that's not the path to it?
Mhm.
Right? What if it's not, those things don't need to be done before I have that thing? What if there's a shorter way? And we think this way so finite with our logical mind, but our logical mind isn't meant to deal with these really big things like our desires,
No.
right? It's just not, it's not what it's cut out to do. It can only really perceive what's happening now.
Yes.
So, oh, I always wanted to go somewhere with you.
Mhm.
I wanted to go somewhere with you, very magical, very lovely.
Take me there. I'm ready.
So, over the past, let's say 2 years, because I've seen just this massive growth of just women just stepping up their healing game, we'll say. They're working on the shadows. They're not no longer scared to really look underneath the bed. They're like capturing it. What are you seeing? How are these women growing over the past couple of years? And what are you really doing to nurture and foster their ascension?
Yeah. Juicy question. I'm seeing women finally let themselves have what they want.
Mm.
It's like that they've gotten really pissed, right? That okay, I've lifted my partner up, I've lifted my kids up, I've lifted my clients up, but what about me? And I'm seeing a lot of women let themselves finally admit that they want something
Yeah.
and get curious about what that actually is. A lot of my women that I work with have checked the boxes, right? They've got the hubby, they've got the this, they've got the that, you know, but they're still longing for something. So it was like I thought I wanted all of these things, and then joy and happiness and peace and pleasure would meet me there. Uh-oh, what did I miss? Something along the way. So we're looking at those places in them. And I never do anything cookie cutter. I really am not a fan of like three-step plans to get here or there,
Uh-huh.
because, the soul doesn't work like that. And everyone has different karma, different dharma. And it's my desire to meet each, human's essence and their design and help them see the path open from that particular spot. So that's what I'm having fun playing with women in my community with right now is you're allowed to want things. What are those things? Where did we get off course? And how do we begin following the pulse of life to get you moving in the direction of having that? And it amplifies so much when they're doing that together because they're seeing, each other do
Absolutely.
these things. Oh, she has that. Okay, I want that. And we brag in my community. We don't, we're not quiet about our what we're doing well, what's going well for us. I have an actual place in the portal for our celebrations, our wins. Like we talk about these things, and we don't only celebrate, oh, I had a $20,000 month. It's like, no, I set a boundary with my mother-in-law finally, or I asked for what I wanted and got it, with my friend or my partner, or
I love that.
yeah.
I love the celebrations. I think they're so important because what I notice with my clients, and I'd start every call with the wins. Hey,
Mhm.
shout it out. What are your wins? Is because we are so programmed to
Yeah.
think negatively. And so when you started out by saying, no, I don't care how, and it starts with just a small thing, and you're like, oh, wait, there's more that happened this week. This happened, and it's like, dude, you had a freaking magical week. I know. I didn't even think about it till till you just prompted them to look at it.
Right.
And so if we did that every day, just imagine where we'd soar to. And now I'm like, why am I not doing that for myself? Because we get in our practices and then we move on to the
Yes.
next practice. But that would be a really great one. And one that really worked with my clients is like shout yourself out every day for what's going right.
Yes.
Um, do you have kids?
I don't.
You don't have kids. Yeah, I didn't think you did. I don't know why. I just felt that in you.
I'm a
Um,
mama to a lot of beings, but not a yeah, not
they
a
didn't
physical
come through
mama in
your
this life.
portal.
They have not come through my portal.
Yes, that's a whole thing of in the healing journey. Um, my children love them, but they have really helped me to identify a lot of the shit I was holding on to. You know, a lot of my
Absolutely.
shadow work has been done via my children.
Our greatest teachers, little
Hmm.
wise beings and little bodies, but a lot of wisdom in there.
Well, they're not little anymore, but
Aw, how old are your kiddos?
16, 15, and 7. So one little
Oh,
one,
okay.
two big ones, taller
Yeah.
than me. Absolutely so sad.
Oh, they're growing up.
So I'd love to ask anything that you would like to promote. Where can people find you?
Hmm.
How can people get into your world?
Yeah. I just rebirthed my website, KeriNOLA.com. I'm so proud of it. It feels like the most honest, transparent, like accurate reflection of me and my body of work to date.
Beautiful.
And I would love to invite everyone there. I have a free money date journal on there for download. I text with my community throughout the week, inspirations, invitations, challenges, soul nudges. So that's 2 free ways to play with me. You can connect with my Instagram. And then I've got all the things. I do shadow healing transmissions. I've got my Remembership receptivity portal, one-to-one mentorship occasionally. That's less of a focus nowadays, but yeah, all the magic is there.
I love that. Well, we're going to put everything in the show notes. So
Okay.
no need to worry if you like got that or not. We're going to stick it right in for your
Perfect.
clicking convenience. Well, my goodness, darling, it has been just such a gift talking to
Hmm.
you. I've had so many little, bings, little downloads, little insights. I even at some point I got this little pinch in my shoulder.
Oh,
Um, and I tried to write it down, but I didn't feel into it when I got it. But
okay.
I was like, I'm gonna really look into that because
Mm,
always for a reason, right? I
never
hold
random.
on my right side, which is my maternal side, and then there's this pinching because oftentimes I like to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders.
You
And
and me both.
I think it was in the part where you were talking about how women are constantly receiving, or not receiving, um,
Holding.
holding, and not allowing for that reciprocation. And I
Yeah.
think that's when I felt the tinge. So I'm like,
Ooh.
oh, I get to look at that. Anyways, yes, it has been a beautiful conversation. Hopefully, we'll get to have another at
Would love
some
that.
point.
Yes.
And yeah, let's get people into your world. They need these frequencies you got going on, Miss Carrie. They need your frequency.
Thank you so much, Tammy. I'm all about sharing my frequency with the people who are ready to receive it. So it's a gift to be here.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.